Hello, everyone. My name is Angela Victorio. Thank you for attending my session. I'm a technical lead at JP Morgan Chase. Previously, I was working for American Airlines, and my demos are more related to my experience with American Airlines. I have been doing software development, CI/CD pipeline, and the past few years, I've been working with Kubernetes. And we all know that Kubernetes is good. It eliminates the downtime during deployment. But as long as the software exists, there will be software bugs. Most of the time, it could be just some type of defect. Your application still running. There are certain scenarios that it's not behaving as expected. Then it's okay. You just fix forward and do another deployment to fix that. But once a while, if you have that type of experience, some very simple code change, very naive code change, it just creates a disaster. And you don't want that ever to happen in your production. Whatever the reason that got pushed to production, why that wasn't caught during testing or in your lower environment, I'm not going to get into that. But I'm just saying, like for you to do deployment, you should think about not to roll out just 100%. You need to reduce this blast radius. Let me ask a question. How many of you do some sort of canary deployment? Yeah, I see quite a few of those. And then we want to make deployment or release really boring. So for that, you shouldn't have any type of anxiety. What if my testing was not enough, or something like just went out to production and just break my application? If that happens, think about I only deploy 10%. You are only impacting 10% of your users, not 100%. That greatly reduces the impact of those type of defects. And for gradual rollout, there are all different ways of doing that. Like using feature flags is pretty common, or you can have some type of code logic. Just for example, a new feature, I use a code to control now to roll it out. Or I can have a feature flag in my config map, like I can enable in one region, not in the other region, then that's just 50%. Let me ask, how many of you use some type of feature switch? Yes, so I know this is pretty common. And then the other ways to control that, you can use some DNS-based, those type of traffic splitting, or just very simple way. You don't have to invest anything, redo your CI/CD pipelines. If you have a multiple cluster, or you have let's say you have 2 regions, just deploy to one region, but pause over there, like observe your production, do some monitoring to see if everything is okay before you roll out to the other region. And today, I'm mostly going to talk about this service mesh. I'm using Istio as the example. So it's mostly demo based. I have my demo set up because I don't trust how the Wi-Fi speed is. And also I don't want to pay to set up a cluster somewhere. So I have everything set up at my local. And I'm also sharing the repo. If later you want to play with it, it's everything in this laptop, and I'm using Kind. And I'm using I have a Kiali, you can also use a Kubernetes dashboard. All this is on GitHub. And just a disclaimer, I wrote a whole bunch of, I asked AI to write those like kind of one time throw away, mostly just for demo purpose. Those scripts, they have a lot of code smells. I mean, they definitely need a lot of like a refactoring, but I just want to show the idea, so I didn't care about that, just to be aware of that. Okay, about this demo one, I'm going to quickly show demo one is the very basic feature of Istio. It can do those weighted routing based on percentage. So for that, let me just, okay, I have some of the application installed. Like I have this Hello World version 1 and version 2. You will be dealing with like a 2 deployment for this type of gradual rollout. And this version 1 is blue background, and then the version 2 is a green background, and that's the only difference. And then for the Istio, I have it set up is 50-50 splitting between these two. Now let me take a look. So this version 1, if I keep on just refreshing it, you're supposed to see it. Okay, it's supposed to change color. Okay, it's not totally like, it's a kind of random, sometimes blue, sometimes green. So this is like blue-green traffic splitting. What I'm going to show here is I want to show you can use automated scripts, make this gradual rollout. Everything is automated. You can go with 10%, 20%, and all the way to 100%, all automated. And we can observe like those scripts, basically it comes to update your Istio virtual service file to change the percentage. But to start off that script, I'm just going to change this to 100%. I want everything to go to this V2 route. Then I'm going to deploy rollout through the other V1 route. So let me save this. And now I'm coming to this. So for that to do, you see my demo is pretty simple. It's using NGX, and I just have a index HTML page. I'm going to change this color to pink, and then it's going to use this V1 route. I'm going to kick off this rollout script. So what it's doing, you can say it's like a 10% or 90%, and that's being applied to my cluster. Now coming back over here, before we see this 100%, if I refresh, so this is 90%. So I just want to like set this up. So for people, if you haven't been using service mesh, then this is some pretty basic traffic routing. Now the focus is to talk about this demo 2. Demo 2 is location-based. I want to give you a scenario, like the team I was working with before was responsible for those airport kiosks. So for those kiosks, you can think about a big airport like ATL or DFW. They probably have over 50 kiosks. But there are some small airports, if you ever been to, they might just have 2 or 3 kiosks. I don't know if anyone, mostly they have a minimum 2. If I just use those percentage-based routing, then what if randomly one of those airports, those kiosks got picked? Like if they only have a 2 kiosks, I want to reduce my risk when I roll out something. I want to reduce everywhere to 10%. But if those guys picked, then I expose the airport to 50% of the risk. If something not working, they only have one other kiosk. And the worst case, they might have just 2. Both were picked. Like during those, I plan to only roll out 20%. And then the 20%, if the 2 fall into this 20%, because the weighted routing is purely like I have thousands of kiosks, it's purely random. If they got picked, then I got 100% of the airports, like even though it's a small one, but then something like all the passengers, you will see them all line up at the ticket counter because they can no longer use the kiosk. They have to rely on those agents. So for this demo 2, we can do some really granular control through still through Istio. But Istio traffic routing, it has another feature. It can route traffic based on the request header. If in the request header, when this kiosk, it can send a request to Istio, it attach a header saying, I need to use route 1, V1, or the other one, some other kiosks are saying I need to use this V2, then Istio can just, based on that, to give them the right version. So Istio itself, it doesn't know what's your location or even your geolocation. It has some features. If you use some sort of API gateway, you can always pass some type of request header. But this one, the demo, I'm going to show those type of software, they sit on a machine. Most of them have some sort of a profile or configuration. Then people can dynamically change. Those admin staff, they can change some type of configuration, like just set them to certain mode. So I would say that's already built in. It's not something just because we want to do this gradual deployment, we introduce something new. We just use those type of, for example, there's a profile API for it. Then for this profile API, I can use some automated script to automatically set it to this version 1 or version 2. Normally, these profiles, they sit in a NoSQL DB or any type of database. Okay, now come to the demo. I have this previously deployed, so let me just show it quickly. It has a backend API that can load those configuration or profile, and then I also have a version 1. Again, version 1, I'm using a blue color, and version 2 is a green color. And I'm going to show you for the API, I can load all the machines. So here I have been talking about airport kiosk, but actually it applies to any scenario if you have some type of machine. This, for the demo purpose, I'm just imagine there are some grocery store. They have those checkout machine, like those self-service one. You can also use that. So I'm calling it a store, like which store, then they have those machines. So over here, I have this API, then it gives all those version of the software route of every single machine. So I have the API running, it's already deployed, and then now come back over here. I have one of those machine, like what is going to be displayed. It's like for this machine, is in star 1. I call it number like machine 3. And when we look at this API for all the machines, initially they are all in this version v1. Now I'm going to do something to that machine. I'm going to set that profile to v2 to flip it, telling it, now you're supposed to use the newer version. I have that v2 deployed, but think about that. No machine is actually using that because all the machines now, their configuration is v1. So for this one machine, I'm going to flip like send a request, and this type of request can be anyway. You can use a script to do it. I just send the request, set it to v2. Now coming back, and this, if I just refresh this one, and you see it's a flip to the other version. I mean, you can go to GitHub to look at the code if anybody really interested. It's like front end. You can use Angular, React, doesn't matter. Normally, they have some sort of service worker, like I can set every minute or every 90 seconds, it go to poll like my profile if anything change. Like for example, those kiosks, the airport agent can do something, set them to sleep mode, or set some baggage, like a drop-off time, like a different configurations. So those type of service worker. Now I'm going to show like how you can automatically roll it out by running some automated script. I'm just going to copy this one. So what I'm trying to do over here is to put 20% of the kiosk to this v2 version. And this 20%, like the script have some Python logic behind that. It's going to pull all those machines, like from every single star. Then it will pick star 1. Star 1 gave me 20% of those machines, set that to v2. Then it can, using this way to calculate, like giving a list. It's not a random list. I know like which star, like how many of the how many machines are in that star, then I can set this 20%. Okay, now it pick like I'm not sure what's the total number of all those machines I set up, but they picked 29 of those. I think I'm supposed to have a, like I set it up like 30 of those stars. So this, if I come back over here, let me load all of those machines. If now you can see some of those, like they got changed to this v2 version. So I'm not going to wait for all these to roll out to 100%. Now coming back to my slides, I have a few points to make for this. So if you really do something like this, you have to think about monitoring. If you just like roll it out gradually and wait, like until some customer complains, that's not acceptable. You need to have some type of dashboard or metrics to compare what's your older version and your newer version. What are their failure rates? Are they like very comparable? If you see some spikes, then definitely there's something wrong. And then for like failure rate and any of those like latencies. And the other thing I want to mention is you have to have a rollback script. So you need to plan your rollback long before you actually go into production. If you are not able to immediately roll back your change, don't even think about going to production. And the type of rollback, I'm not talking about you roll back in GitHub, rerun your pipeline, then roll it out. Or you can have the same image, the older image, you just redeploy that version. Like this way using Istio, like the rollback can be immediate. Like for the demo 1 case, you can immediately run some script to switch to the older version 100%. And for the demo 2, you can send something like to all those to the profile, set every single machine to the older version. So those are immediate rollback. And then I want to mention a few things of using those type of rollout. You have to think about timing. That if before you roll out, you just click a button, everything like to deploy. It might be pretty fast if you don't do this type of gradual rollout. But this, if you do 10% increment by 10%, it definitely make it longer. If it depends on how frequent you deploy. If you really do those continuous deployments, it might affect that. So have to think about that. And the other thing I really want to mention, even though this is the last point, it's like I have seen some teams, their changes are actually coupled together, meaning they have a data layer service, and then they also have a changes in the let's say the backend service for the front end, and then they have some UI changes. However, all these changes have to go out together in the same release. They are not able to deploy the data layer service alone. If it's that way, that means all your changes are actually coupled. Then since we talk about we don't want any downtime, it all depends on, it's a case by case, it's up to your scenario, how you think about if a few minutes downtime is acceptable. Like the moment you deploy this data layer service, actually your other two components are already broken because they have to go with the older version of this data layer service. If your changes are that way, then for a few minutes, and unless you do all three of them, like all exactly at the same time, then you probably need 3 people to do that. But if anything goes wrong with one, just think about what are you going to do with those two. So actually, those type of deployments, they have a downtime. So if you really have the changes are coupled together, then rethink about that. So that's not really like related to my topic today, but I did a lot of like research on that, and also we try to find the best practice to decouple those type of changes. And I have something right up. I'm sharing the link over here. I'm just not going to cover that, and that's like related. It's all about like backward compatible. If you make every single change backward compatible, then you can deploy like just data layer alone or backend service alone. It's not going to affecting the others. Okay, that's it. Yeah, thanks. Any questions? I know it's about lunchtime. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, I made it on time, so.
Over what time period do you gradually roll out?
Okay, let me here.
Over what time period, like, do you gradually roll out? Minutes, hours, days?
Yeah, it depends. Actually, sometimes we do like after 50%, the other 50% we do like the second day. You can also do it the same day. So the question is, how long is the time period? So that's a very good question. That's the thing I mentioned. It make it longer. It's not like in the afternoon you just roll it out. Actually, it all depends. Like we all want to do those small incremental changes, right? Like a change to change a little bit different. Whenever I feel there's a certain higher risk, I make it slower. But if something I feel is really simple, I follow this, I can speed it up. So those are type of, we have those like minute stop points in the pipeline. You can just decide when to move it forward. The ideal way is like if you have those automated functional tests, then it can just go much faster. If you have enough successful requests, then you feel comfortable. It's okay. We cover enough of those scenarios, then just roll it out. It will make it faster. Like right, but it did make the overall period longer. Yes.
So for all other questions, if we can use the microphone in the middle so we can have the audio for the YouTube video. Thank you.
So for like developers who aren't familiar with Kubernetes, how do you make the status of the deployment visible to them? Like for them to know that this deployment is say 20% complete at these locations or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, let me let me try to think about that, because the way my team work is more like we want those T-shaped developer. That's how we set up. We didn't have a platform engineering team, so everybody actually was able to look at those Istio or the percentage. The other way I can think about doing that is in your pipeline, you can display something at what percentage. Yeah, those are the, in the pipeline, we were using Git action. Yeah, let me try to think about, yeah, we do have those type of label, like the job runs, then at what stage it is, then it automatically display, I'm at 20% or like the percentage. So you had to, right, that's a good question. Need to make that visible to developers.
Thank you.
Yes. I think if no more questions, then that's it. We can all go for lunch. Thank you.